Hi, and welcome to a brand new episode of Random Thoughts and Views with Jan. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about British actor, writer and producer Noel Clarke and his legal judgment day.
Yes, there are loads of people that do awful things, and they've counted me in that. They've counted me in that. I'm supposed to be the worst thing ever. Yet here I am. But there's a lot of people that talk a lot of shit, and there needs to be a way to hold these people accountable. And as I put up yesterday, the definition of evil is someone that's good who believes they are doing absolute good. Because if you believe so much that you are doing absolute good and you can't see any other argument, then you're fucking evil.
On April 29th, 2021, The Guardian newspaper published the first of 7 articles reporting that 20 women had accused Clarke of groping, harassment and bullying. Hours later, ITV News reported the following.
Tonight News is breaking that the actor who won the prestigious BAFTA Award for Outstanding British Contribution to Cinema earlier this month is alleged by a number of women to have bullied and sexually harassed them. Allegations he denies, and Neil is here to talk about all this. It's obviously a breaking story. Tonight, what do we know?
A lot happening in the last hour. As you say, nearly 3 weeks since we saw the actor Noel Clarke receive his BAFTA Award for Outstanding British Contribution to Cinema, best known for appearing in Doctor Who and co-creating the Hood trilogy, and also, as you say, seen earlier tonight on that ITV drama Viewpoint. Tonight, BAFTA has said it's suspending his award and membership until further notice following allegations of misconduct. It comes after The Guardian says it's spoken to 20 women who accused the actor of sexual harassment and inappropriate behaviour. Now, Noel Clarke has denied all the allegations. In a statement, he has said, in a 20-year career, I have put inclusivity and diversity at the forefront of my work and never had a complaint made against me. If anyone who has worked with me has ever felt uncomfortable or disrespected, I sincerely apologise. I vehemently deny any sexual misconduct or wrongdoing and intend to defend myself against these false allegations. Now, Tom, The Guardian claims that BAFTA was informed about the existence of several of these allegations against Noel Clarke 13 days before the ceremony. They report that BAFTA did not dispute receiving the allegations, but say BAFTA says it was provided with no evidence that would allow it to investigate. We've put those specific claims to BAFTA tonight, and they replied, we have no further comment at this time.
Noel's entire career imploded within hours of The Guardian publishing their article. BAFTA suspended Noel. Other organisations, including All 3 Media, who owned a stake in his company Unstoppable, distanced themselves. The BBC announced they wouldn't be moving forward with any projects that involved Noel, namely an adaptation of the late Alex Wheatl's book Crompton Nights, which they did later go on to produce without his involvement. There was also another BBC project called Borders that they moved forward with without Noel's involvement.
There was a show called Borders that I created from a newspaper article. It's been made and sold to Tubi in America. I want you to understand something. When I say I created it, I did, literally from a newspaper article that came in. And I was kicked off. I was forced off under duress, I might add, when all the articles came out and I was called the monster among men and all these wicked things, the next Bill Cosby, the new Jimmy, all this shit that they called me. And they kicked me off the show. Now you got these people running around saying they created this show and they done this and they done that. I created it from a newspaper article. I've got hundreds of emails, texts, everything that is there to prove that I did it is there. So they're never going to cover this. So I just want you to know that the show Borders, whenever it comes on, as good as it is or as terrible it is, regardless, because I've not been involved, it started here. So the wickedness continues. Thanks for the support.
After The Guardian published their damning article in April 2021, Noel disappeared from the public eye for just over a year. In 2022, he gave his first formal interview to a newspaper publication, looking stressed and underweight in the photograph published alongside the article. Then in 2023, he appeared on a number of podcasts where he swore he was innocent of any wrongdoing, even though he had previously said in a statement addressing the allegations that if anyone who has worked with me has ever felt uncomfortable or disrespected, I sincerely apologise. Noel would also go on to remind us that he hadn't been arrested or criminally charged with any crime ever.
So I guess now I was just so evil and manipulative that I did everything that was kind of just under the level of criminality. Or maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, maybe it was a bit of exaggeration and collusion and embellishment and bullshit. But hey, just saying.
He also convinced himself and others that this was all a conspiracy to bring him down, and he had proof that his accusers had all got together to spread lies about him because they held a grudge, including his former best friend, Davy Fairbanks. He also convinced himself and others that his former friend and protege, Adam Deacon, was behind the Guardian article. That Adam, a man with mental health issues who had been in and out of hospital, and who was also rock bottom career-wise, orchestrated his entire takedown.
There are a lot of DMs. There are a lot of DMs asking why I'm so quiet, what's going on, what's been happening. Well, a lot's been happening. And the reason I've been quiet the last few weeks is because I've received a lot of very interesting information that really blew a lot of stuff wide open in terms of people that were behind what happened. And I'm just processing how to release that, how to put that out, and who I can expose in the process. I just need to think about that very carefully.
Adam Deacon, what is that? Because I feel like I've heard things from Adam. I've heard things. No one's heard from him. No, I've not heard. But I've heard things maybe around the thing. You can read articles. You can see that there's been restraining orders and all those type of things. What is that with Adam Deacon? Because obviously you guys worked together. You were close at one point. What happened there? And do you feel like he has a part to maybe play in? Do I feel? Yeah, like do you is there I don't feel.
In March 2025, 4 years after Noel announced he would be suing The Guardian for defamation, the highly anticipated civil trial kicked off. Noel, I believe, genuinely thought he could represent himself in court and win. But all this move did was expose Noel's unprofessional and, to be frank, in many cases, disgusting behaviour throughout the years. Let's take a deep dive into a couple of the allegations he faced and denied. Penelope, Production A. Penelope, not her real name, has been an actor since childhood, working full-time as an actor since the age of 17 across theatre, television, film and radio. Penelope played the female lead opposite Mr. Clarke in Production A, which he also directed. The allegations in relation to Penelope concern private rehearsal, alleged misconduct during and in relation to the filming of a sex scene, and a prior scene in which their characters appeared intimately engaged on a sofa. The prior scene and subsequent alleged inappropriate behaviour and bullying. Penelope gave evidence that after she accepted the role in Production A, Mr. Clarke invited her to a rehearsal. She said, "I arrived to discover that Noel was there alone. He met me at ground level and walked me up to a small office space. There were no other staff of any kind. The room was very compact. The blinds were down. There was a computer on a desk and a black leather sofa. I found the space very odd, not at all like a regular rehearsal space or production office, but didn't see it as a red flag." Penelope said that during the one-to-one meeting, Mr. Clarke told her that for the filming of the sex scene between their characters, in which Mr. Clarke's character would be on top of Penelope's character in bed, they would both need to be naked on their lower body. Mr. Clarke explained that he wanted to shoot the scene with a camera viewing the characters from the side, and so even a thin string would be seen. Penelope said, I discussed perhaps wearing patches or covers, which were often used for such scenes. Noel was insistent that he didn't think this would work and said he wanted to keep it natural. I knew the footage of naked lower parts could not be shown in the film anyway, and made clear to Noel that I was unwilling to appear topless. Penelope accepted at the time that the shot list made covering up more difficult. I'm just going to stop here a minute and say, I know this film. I've seen this film. I'm not going to say who the actress is, and I'm not going to name the film because I don't want to expose her. But anyone who has watched Noel's films or been a fan, you will know this scene and you will know the film. Anyway, I digress. During the same meeting, Penelope said, Noel proposed that we rehearse the blocking of the scenes. This means working out the positions and movements within a scene. Noel had us lie on the floor and he was on top of me. I found this very weird. Too intimate, unprofessional, but I didn't feel threatened and I tolerated it. In his first statement, Mr. Clarke said he did not recall arranging any rehearsals himself and understood they were arranged by either the casting director or executive producers. He said they were fully clothed during the rehearsal and that any inference of or implication that these rehearsals were for my sexual gratification is entirely unfounded and untrue. In cross-examination, Mr. Clarke denied that he did this because he wanted to have a sexual relationship with her. In her oral evidence, Penelope said that she had not known before she arrived that no one other than Mr. Clarke would be present at the rehearsal. She said the space was very small and very intimate. She agreed they were fully clothed. She also referred to Mr. Clarke asking her, when exploring how she related to the character, to disclose the worst thing that had happened to her. Penelope said that she was saddened by her response just being dismissed by Mr. Clarke as something which did not count. The prior scene and the sex scene were filmed the same day in the same location. During the prior scene, their characters were clothed. They kissed, and then Penelope's character would straddle Mr. Clarke's character while they were sat on a sofa. Penelope said, in the rehearsal of this scene, Noel had an erection. I could feel it clearly rubbing on me, and he made me aware of it. He was smiling and sort of giggling quietly. There were a lot of people around us. He said, look what you've done to me. He made out he was embarrassed and caught out. She described the situation as awkward, weird, and embarrassing. But she did not move as she did not want the crew to notice. And at that stage, she thought he had lost some control and did not feel threatened. The filming of the sex scene, Penelope said that she and Mr. Clarke were both naked below the waist. She said that the camera was at the foot of the mattress rather than to the side, and she could see that there was no need for her to be nude on her bottom half. She said, when we shot the scene, Noel had an erection from the start. He was on top of me in the bed. When he first took down his trousers and pants, I felt his penis land on my pubic area. I tried to move myself up in the bed slightly so there would be distance between our genitals, but then his penis was touching me in between my legs right at the entry of my vagina. She said that the scene was shot from various camera angles and there may have been 4 or 5 takes in each angle, which she estimated took a few minutes or more on each angle. Then Noel announced to the crew in the room that they should all leave because he said, we need to rehearse. The crew all left and were waiting outside the door of the room. Noel got off me to one side and was lying next to me. We were both sat up, slightly leaning on our elbows. He lifted up the blanket to show his erect penis and was insisting in a hushed but forceful voice that I must look at it. He was saying things like, "It's massive. Everyone's told me it's big," and that you have to look. You want to look at it. Look at it. It wasn't even a question of whether I wanted to. He was demanding it. I felt panicked and shocked and was saying, "No, no, I don't want to." I was absolutely adamant that I would not look, and I did not look. Penelope said that she was begging Mr. Clarke to bring the crew back into the room. She felt disgusted and shocked and frightened and concerned that he had created an impression to the crew that I was complicit in whatever was happening behind that closed door. Penelope denied that the sex scene had been discussed at length beforehand. She said the only conversation she had about it was at the one-to-one rehearsal with Mr. Clarke. Mr. Clarke denied that his penis ever became erect during the rehearsal or filming of the prior scene or the sex scene. He said that after the take of the prior scene, I immediately got up to speak to the director of photography to ensure the scene was satisfactory. In his first statement, he said that it was necessary for the filming of the sex scene that both actors be undressed, and that from an artistic perspective, the scene could not be filmed with covers or patches given the material and software available at the time, he said. My penis was not exposed during the sex scene, as I did not remove my trousers or underpants, which was slightly lowered to give the illusion that my penis was exposed. I was wearing a nylon sock over my penis. I supported myself on my left leg throughout the scene to prevent my penis falling over Penelope's private area. I endeavoured not to touch Penelope's private area or general body with my penis whilst trying to make the scene look realistic. The scene was shot for approximately 10 seconds. In cross-examination, Mr. Clarke said Penelope was lying about the prior scene and the sex scene. He accepted that Penelope could have worn a modesty patch, but he said the production was intended to be edgy. His intention was to make an 18 and then cut bits out of the 18 to make it a 15 rating. He said that she had to be nude for the shot they had planned, in which they were supposed to see my testicles or just a bit, and you were supposed to see up her leg, up the inside of her thigh, the crotch bit without seeing the bits. He said that it had been intended that he would be nude too, but the now deceased director of photography gave him nylon ankle tights just before the sex scene, saying just in case, and so he had worn that covering. But Penelope could not have the same provision, as the idea was to see the inside of her leg to the crotch area. God. Mr. Clarke said that he and the director of photography made 3 failed attempts to secure the planned shot. Mr. Clarke said there was no rehearsal when the crew were sent out. He accepted in the cross-examination, in light of the footage, that contrary to his statement, he had pulled his trousers and underpants down to his thighs and his penis was clearly exposed. He acknowledged that the scene was shot for more than 10 seconds and said, "It is not very long." He said that Penelope has only come with this because the director of photography has died, unfortunately, and is now not able to defend me. It was put to Penelope that Mr. Clarke wore a patch or a nylon sock, which she said was completely untrue. She agreed that the director of photography was very well respected, but denied that he was present on the closed set. Penelope said that on a later occasion on set, Mr. Clarke took her aside and told her he was in love with her, saying words to the effect that other than his mother and his pregnant fiancée, she was the only woman he had really loved. What a nutcase. She said that she was sympathetic and told him she was flattered but did not reciprocate his feelings. After filming had wrapped on her birthday, Mr. Clarke sent her a bunch of 100 tulips. She said it was awkward receiving such an extravagant delivery while with her parents and boyfriend. She phoned Mr. Clarke immediately to say that it was not appropriate. After that phone call, during interviews with the press for the production, she said Noel refused to look at me, speak to me or refer to me at all, which she described as humiliating. At the premiere for the production, she said that Mr. Clarke arranged for her to be seated away from the cast, and he invited all the cast and contributing musicians and artists onto the stage at the end, except me. Mr. Clarke denied that he had told her he loved her, and denied responsibility for where she was seated at the premiere or whether she was called onto stage. He emphasised that she arrived late. The judge's response to this. I found Penelope to be an honest witness who did not embellish or exaggerate her evidence. I reject as unfounded the contention that she has conspired with anyone to harm Mr. Clarke. She was not identified by Mr. Clarke as a conspirator or an associate. An attempt to tar her as such in cross-examination quickly collapsed. The claimant's submissions seek to draw a link between Penelope and Jamie Winston, but there is no evidence that she knows her. There's no evidence that Mr. Deacon played any part in Penelope's decision to come forward with allegations against Mr. Clarke or to give evidence. I find that the one-to-one rehearsal happened in the way that Penelope has described. Mr. Clarke was attracted to her, and he used his power as the director to call her to a rehearsal at which no one else was present. Although they remained fully clothed throughout, and they were only blocking the sex scene that is determining the movement and positioning of the actors, this involved Mr. Clarke lying on top of Penelope, which she understandably regarded as too intimate and unprofessional in those circumstances. I accept Penelope's evidence. I accept Penelope's evidence regarding the rehearsal of the prior scene. Mr. Clarke's evidence that he immediately got up after the take of the prior scene may be true, but it does not undermine Penelope's evidence regarding the rehearsal of the scene, nor is her evidence undercut by Mr. Clarke's evidence that she patted him on the chest, saying that was good, following the prior scene. Mr. Clarke's evidence regarding the shot that he planned to film was not credible, and it was inconsistent with his first statement, in which he said it was agreed that Penelope's private parts would not be filmed. The filming of the sex scene obviously took more than 10 seconds. Mr. Clarke had to accept. The tracking shot itself a little over twice the length, and the scene was not shot in a single take. Another damning allegation involved Philippa Crabb. Philippa Crabb, now a production manager, was working in an entry-level position on Brotherhood, the last of the Kidulthood trilogy written and produced by Clarke, when he offered her a small role as a nurse. Miss Crabb said that towards the end of filming, when it was pointed out that a one-line nurse role had not been cast, Mr. Clarke suggested her for the part, as she was a trained actor. She was excited to be given the role. Miss Crabb said, "The next morning when I picked up Noel, we were driving along and we pulled up and he said something like, 'So, I've got this nurse role. What are you going to do for me?' It wasn't in a jokey tone. He said it very seriously. I realised he seriously meant he expected a sexual favour in return. I had no idea what to say. I said something like, 'I'm going to act really well in the role.' He responded with something like, 'Well, of course you'll do that, but what are you going to do for me?' Mr. Clarke denied this allegation. He relied on the fact that she did the role and he has not received any favours for it, to show that he was not holding her ransom for a sexual favour for the role. Miss Crabb later went on to describe an incident that she said occurred at the Brotherhood rap party held at a small underground bar in West London. Towards the end of the rap party, I was in the women's toilets. There was one other person there. Noel then came into the women's toilets. The other girl left and a costume assistant from the production came in. She was very young, I would say about 18 years old. I went into the cubicle, and as I went to close the door, Noel opened it and came into it after me. I was at the back of what was quite a very small cubicle, and he leaned against the door, facing me and blocking the way out. He pulled a condom out of his pocket and said something to the effect of, "How about it then?" I said something about his wife and 3 kids, as I had seen them before on set. I can't remember his response in precise words, but it was something along the lines of, "I don't care." His attitude in that moment changed. He went from friendly to defensive. I just felt huge pressure from him. I can't remember how I got out of the cubicle. He must have moved to the side or something, and I pushed past and somehow got away. He didn't force himself on me, and there was no physical contact as far as I can recall. As I left, he followed me out of the cubicle and went into the cubicle with the costume assistant. Mr. Clarke said this allegation was untrue. I would never do that. I'm not someone who would do that, he said. I was not interested in Philippa Crabb, and she clearly was not interested in me because, as I have said, she had already shown her inappropriate conduct with another member of the cast. That was a reference to her relationship with Mr. Oseng. So Mr. Oseng is Arnold Oseng. He starred in Adulthood and Brotherhood, and to my knowledge was and still is friendly with Noel Clarke. Judgment Day. On Friday the 22nd of August 2025, Mrs. Justice Steyn dismissed Clarke's libel claim and said The Guardian had succeeded in defending its stories on the grounds of truth and public interest. The judge said Clarke's conspiracy claim did not have a proper foundation and was born of necessity in the face of a large body of witnesses giving evidence against him. There has been no conspiracy to lie, she continued. In the absence of a conspiracy, Mr. Clarke's case that more than 20 witnesses, none of whom are parties or have a stake in this case, as he does, have come to court to lie, is inherently implausible. The judgment said it was clear that the women have been speaking about their experiences of working with Mr. Clarke for many years. However, the judge did reject an allegation of groping and accepted Clarke's evidence that nude photographs given in evidence were taken with the consent of the woman involved. She also accepted that an improvisation exercise in an acting class led by Clarke, in which some actors undressed, was not set for his own sexual gratification, adding that although he found actors' objections to nudity vexing, his aim was to help students become comfortable with appearing partially nude for roles which may require it. In response to the judgment, Clarke said, I have never claimed to be perfect, but I am not the person described in these articles. Overnight, I lost everything. The media outlet didn't just ruin my life, they ripped through my family's also. He later went on to thank the team who stood beside me throughout, as well as his family, who never stopped believing there was something worth fighting for. The decision today does not change the fact that inaccuracies were published. I want to thank the witnesses who confirmed that key elements of the reporting were false. The judge heard live evidence called on behalf of the claimant, Noel Clarke, from 9 witnesses, including Mr. Clarke himself, over the course of 6 days from the 10th of March to the 17th of March 2025. David Wade gave evidence in person on the afternoon of day 7. Iris Clarke, Noel's wife, gave evidence in person the same afternoon. Louise Irwin, whose professional name is Louise Dillon, gave evidence in person on the morning of day 8. Andrew Loveday gave evidence via a video link on the morning of day 8. Joshua Myers, Philip Dorr, Gerard Schwartz and Cedric St. Clair each gave evidence via video link on day 9. There were other witnesses who were supposed to appear on Noel's behalf, but they chose not to appear. The excuses ranged from they were out of the country, or they were busy editing a project, or childcare issues. The fact that former colleagues and friends, including Jason Mazza, his former business partner, chose not to turn up in his defence says it all, really. The aftermath. After Noel's defamation defeat, it was ruled that the now unemployed actor must pay at least £3 million of the Guardian publisher's legal costs after pursuing a far-fetched and false case against the newspaper. Mrs. Justice Steyn said he must pay £3 million within the next 28 days ahead of a detailed assessment into the total cost to be recovered. She said, "It seems to me that the sum of £3 million sought by the defendant is appropriate and no more than what ought to be reasonably ordered in this case. It is substantially lower than the defendant's likely level of recovery on detailed assessment, and so, in my judgment, it does allow for a suitably wide margin of error." The judge continued, "The claimant, Noel, maintained a far-fetched and indeed a false case that the articles were not substantially true by pursuing allegations of dishonesty and bad faith against almost all of the defendant's truth witnesses." Gavin Miller, KC for The Guardian, had asked the court to order payment of half of the estimated £6 million costs as an interim payment. Noel, who represented himself at the hearing, told the court he thought the Guardian's legal costs were excessive and should be reduced. The defamation trial also served to open up another can of worms for Noel. Weeks later, in September, it was reported that he was arrested and taken into custody for questioning over an allegation of voyeurism against a woman in her 20s, which is said to have occurred in February 2013. Clarke was held in custody for 8 hours before he was released on bail. Police also conducted a 5-hour search of his home, and his laptop and documents were reportedly seized as well. In a statement to the Metro newspaper, the Met Police said, "A man in his 40s was arrested on Thursday, September 25th, at an address in the Kensington area on suspicion of voyeurism. This relates to offences allegedly committed in 2013 at an address in London against a woman in her 20s. The man was taken into custody and later bailed pending further inquiries. The arrest forms part of an investigation being led by the Met's Central Specialist Crime Command." Now, for those of you who might be wondering whether voyeurism is a crime or not, it is. Voyeurism is the act of gaining sexual gratification from observing or recording someone engaged in a private activity without their consent. This behaviour constitutes a criminal offence under both the Sexual Offences Act 2003 and the Voyeurism Offences Act 2019. Although these acts address slightly different aspects, they each establish voyeurism as a punishable offence in its own regard. I don't know who or what convinced Noel that it would be a good idea to sue for defamation. But either way, it was a bad idea, especially if deep down you know you were guilty on occasion of moving unprofessionally and like a creep throughout the years. When you opt to sue a major publication like The Guardian, you are opening up yourself to major scrutiny, and that is exactly what happened here. Career-wise, I don't know where he goes from here. Had Noel not sued, he might have been able to survive somewhat. I mean, prior to the verdict, Noel still received support from fans and some support from a couple of well-known faces who believed he had been railroaded and was now a victim of cancel culture. Noel would still engage with his audience via social media, in particular Instagram, where he would film himself walking around his neighbourhood in Kensington while speaking on mental health, therapy, the demise of his career, and how he was about to expose his accusers, proving in court that over 20 women and Adam Deacon had all conspired to take him down. His supporters were also prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt, because he had not been arrested or charged with any crime. One group of fans, who have since gone mute, launched a Justice for Noel Clarke page on X, and there seemed to be a glimmer of hope that he could still forge ahead with his writing and musings via online platforms like Substack and still be visible and heard via Instagram. But the Guardian's win and cheers from women's groups has deaded all that.
I was just so evil and manipulative that I did everything that was kind of just under the level of criminality. Or maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, maybe it was a bit of exaggeration and collusion and embellishment and bullshit. But hey, just saying, there are a lot of bad people in this business. I promise you, I was not one.
But the 224-page court judgment tells a very different story, Noel. That concludes today's episode. But for more news, views and thoughts, follow me on Instagram, Mad News UK, on X, Mad News UK, and madnewsuk.com.